Coach Brian Dutcher, welcome to the Leadership Classroom. Thanks so much for doing this. How are you?
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm busy as always, but that's a good thing.
That is a good thing always. Coach, every leader has a set of values or tenets that shape the way they build a team or a culture. For you, what are the things that have to be present every day in order to be successful?
Just hard work and honesty. I feel as if I've aged. I've done this a whole lifetime, and I've gotten better every year. And I just felt what's worked best for me is just being an honest approach, being sincere with my messaging every day, and building relationships with my team and my coaching staff.
Coach, you grew up as the son of a coach. When did you first understand that coaching wasn't just your dad's job, but maybe also your calling?
My mom tried to discourage me because my dad, when he'd come home after a loss, he would be stressing, and she used to tell me, "You see what this is doing to your dad, loses games, how hard it is." And coaching is a hard lifestyle. It's a lot like the military where you can be moving every 3 and 4 years just chasing that next job. And so I take great pride in the fact I've had a stable career, 26 years at San Diego State, I think 10 years at Michigan. But I knew I always wanted to be a coach. I love what my dad did, and I had a passion for it. And thank goodness I've been able to live that passion.
Local television, very similar in that regard too, Coach, and Naj and I can relate because
Yeah.
you are moving, right? You're starting in like middle of nowhere, Wyoming, and then you're moving every couple of years up to a bigger market. And so we certainly understand the toll that takes. Coach, you spent a long time as an assistant before becoming a head coach. Was patience something that came naturally to you, or was that something that you had to learn along the way?
There's a lot of coaches that chase that first job, and they take a job at a place where they've never had success, and they think they're going to turn it around. And a lot of them are capable of doing it, but unfortunately in coaching, it's gotten more this way that if you don't get it done in 3 years, you're usually fired. And even when I took over for Steve Fisher all those years ago, I felt I had a 3-year window. I'd never been a head coach, and I just felt they gave me the job, but if I didn't do the job in my first 2 or 3 years, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Coach, let me follow that up because there have been coaches in the past that have been there, built programs, and then they've retired. And then a new coach comes in, and they're not necessarily as successful as the previous coach. I think about North Carolina, where Dean Smith was the coach. He built the program, and then Bill Guthridge took over, and then they just had this steady line of coaches that weren't so successful. What type of leadership does it take to take a program where you've seen success, but you're taking over for a legend, and then like to keep that success going? What kind of leadership does that take?
It takes recruiting really good players that are good people. And like I said, when I took over, I was blessed to take over a program I helped build with Steve Fisher. We came here in 1999. That was 26 years ago. And when he came in and said he was retiring, I knew I had a small window, and I had to continue to do what we'd done to win here. Be a defensive-minded program, recruit good kids that are good students that want to win, and have a good coaching staff that surrounds me, that makes me look good. And so I have a great coaching staff. I've had great players that are about the right things, and I've had a great university that supports me and our efforts to continue to build a great program at San Diego State.
Now, in 2017, you became the sport's oldest first-time head coach at the age of 57. What did all of those years of working for legends, Lou Henson, Steve Fisher, what did all of those people that you talked to, that you worked with, what was the learning experience that got you prepared for that job?
That's an interesting question because when you're a younger coach, you watch all these other guys. Back when I was a young coach, it was Bob Knight, or it was my dad, Lou Henson, all these Steve Fisher guys I'd worked for. And I'm wondering, how am I going to be them? How am I going to be exactly like them to have that success? And what you learn is you take a piece of all of them, and then you just stay true to who you are. You have to coach to your personality. And I think I've done a good job of that. I've learned from Steve Fisher. I've learned from Lou Henson. I've learned from my father. And I'm not like any of them, but I'm like all of them. And so I take the best of what they do and I match it to my personality. And that's led to some success for my career.
Yeah, I mean, Coach, you once said everybody talks about changing the culture when they take over a job. I'm one of the few new coaches who wants to maintain that culture and such reverence every time we hear you talk about Steve Fisher. How do you protect what Steve Fisher built while also making a name for yourself?
It's just investing every day in the job. I always say about Steve Fisher, in a world of talkers, he was a great listener. So I've tried to be a better listener. Most people can't wait to get out their next words and tell you what they think. And sometimes I've learned to be a good head coach, you have to listen. You have to listen to your assistants, you have to listen to your team. And then after you absorb all that information, then you have to make the decisions that will set the tone for practice or that game. And so I think I become a better listener over my career.
You've been around some iconic players, iconic teams. I remember when I was growing up, I had to wear the black socks on the basketball court because of the Fab Five. Um, from the Fab Five at Michigan to Kawhi Leonard in the NBA right now, what do the great ones usually have in common before everybody realizes that they're great?
Yeah, I remember back when I was a young assistant at Michigan in '89, we won the national championship. Glenn Rice led that team. And it's just that it's talent and then it's drive. It just can't be talent. Talent has to match desire and work ethic. And Glenn might have been the best player I've ever coached. And then obviously the Fab Five at Michigan with Weber, Howard, Rose, King, and Jackson. That was a special group that fell short, lost two national championship games, but had that desire, had that talent to be special. Then Kawhi Leonard might have been the hardest working player I've ever been associated with. He was almost obsessed with basketball, with getting better every day. And anytime you went in the gym, there he was working on his game. And that continued through his pro career. He's still over here at San Diego State in the offseason, working out in our practice facility, working on his game, working on his trade. And that's what made him great.
I was telling my oldest son McCoy this morning, Coach, that I was interviewing you, and I brought up the fact that you got Kawhi to San Diego State, and he said, "Dad, can you ask him how he got Kawhi there?"
It
So,
was
Coach, the question from an 8.5-year-old: how did you get Kawhi to San Diego State?
Well, high school recruiting, we have the portal now, which things get done in a week or 2 weeks. Back then, it was building relationships in high school. So going to see him, meeting his mom, meeting his family, building that relationship of trust that when he picked a college, he felt that we were the best people prepared to lead him to what his goals were. And with that being said, everybody makes choices in recruiting. UCLA took someone other than Kawhi, USC, and not that he would have gone there, but everyone makes choices in recruiting. And we saw something in Kawhi that we thought was special, and that proved to be true, that he is a special player and a special person.
Let me ask you about recruiting and team building because I've seen that that Fab Five documentary that's been on ESPN before, and they talked about you and Steve Fisher, but they also talked a little bit about this closeness of the players when you guys would not just be in the basketball court, but then during practice sessions, even this trip to Europe that you guys took. Recruiting is really team building when you're putting together a group of players, of athletes, even in our case, educators, how do you balance talent and and really identify what type of people can help you as a leader build that culture?
Yeah, I mean, when you're recruiting players, the hard lesson to learn is don't just fall in love with talent, fall in love with character and make the calls. Whether you're looking at a transfer in the portal, call that head coach, call those assistant coaches where they're coming from, and find out what kind of kid is he? Is he about winning? Is he on time? Is he a good student? Does he care about the right things? And put all that together. Same thing with hiring a coaching staff. A lot of young coaches, they want to hire everybody that's exactly like them personality wise. The key is to embrace people that are different than you. I'm a glass half full guy. I'm a positive person, but I have guys on my staff that the glass is half empty. I've got guys on my staff that yell and are mad about things. I have guys on my staff that are huggers and lovers. So meld a bunch of people that aren't exactly like you. Embrace their characteristics that make them good and put it all together. And then you can have a good staff and you can have a good team.
I mean, you talked about building a coaching staff. You've empowered those assistant coaches to have real voices in your program. How do you identify leadership potential in someone before they have that bigger title?
The key is delegating. That's why I could work for Steve Fisher as long as I did.
Yeah.
He delegated and he made you feel like when you came to work every day, you were making a difference. It wasn't just sitting there watching him work. You felt like you were contributing. And so that's what I want from my coaches. I want them to feel they have a voice, that they're contributing every day to the success we're having. And that's what Steve Fisher did for me. He enabled me to feel like I was contributing at a level where it was fun to go to work every day. So, as good as you are as a leader, you're always as good as the people that work for you. And so, I empower those people. I empower my staff. I empower my team. And then we adjust along the way to what needs to be done to make us all special.
Do you look at that? I just want to go back to education because when you're an education leader and you're building your team, you have some experienced educators, you have brand new educators. Just through that lens, do you see team building as very similar, whether it's a college basketball team or the school itself?
It's anything. It's running a business. If you're at the top of your business, you're as good as your employees. If you're a principal, you're as good as your teachers. You can be the greatest principal in the world, but if you don't get the best out of your teachers every day, then you're not getting it done. And so they're not all going to be exactly like you. So embrace what differences they have from you, but keep them on the direction where they're making a positive difference in their students' lives every day. And they all do it a different way. Some of them through discipline, some of them through love. And there's a lot of different ways to accomplish the same goal. So don't try to make them all the same. Embrace their differences and get the best out of them every day they come to work.
College athletics has changed so much with name, image, and likeness, the transfer portal, agents, families, boosters, and the public pressure. How do you lead when you have to wear so many hats?
It's You have to embrace that you're not in control of the rules that are going on, and you could sit there and complain about them. Well, they're playing too much, or this school's got more money, or I wish there wasn't unlimited free agency in college basketball and no salary cap. You can sit there and complain about it, but I always just look at my job as trying to make San Diego State the best it can be every day, to be relevant on a national level. And even though I can't control the rules, just let me know what they are, and I'm going to go to work every day. And that's like education. Might not be able to control public funding or cell phone rules, whether they put them away or let them take them out. Just know what you're dealing with, embrace what you're dealing with, knowing that some things you can't change, some you can, but the things you can't change, don't sit there and complain about it. Go to work and try to maximize what you can do with the rules or the things you're dealing with on a daily basis.
Coach, given your long career in coaching, do today's players need something different from a leadership style, from a coaching style than what we saw 20 or 30 years ago? Has the modern athlete evolved in such a way?
Obviously, they've changed over the years. The world has changed. It
Sure.
changes every day.
Yeah.
But I go to work every day because even though my players are making money now and they're getting paid like employees, they still want to be disciplined. They still want to be taught. They still want to be led. And as long as those don't change, I'll continue to come to work and pour into them. If I feel like they're acting entitled and they don't want to be taught and they don't want to be led, then my passion will be gone. But even though the players, the way they live their lives have changed and the money that's available to them has changed, I feel they still want to be led. They want to be taught. They want to be developed. They want to be disciplined. And I'm an expert at that age group. I've been dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds my whole career, and I feel as if in that regard they haven't changed. They want to be led by people that have their best interests at heart.
Has your coaching style changed over the years?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm true to who I am as a person. I mean, this is only into my 10th year of being a head coach, and here I
Sure.
am, 66 years old. So I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. Uh, I just want them to know that I care about them. That as much as I'm there for the time they have a basketball in their hands, I'm preparing them for the majority of their life where they don't have a basketball, where they're living life and they're living life without playing basketball. And I take pride in trying to prepare them for that part of their life by the daily lessons I'm teaching them how to be a good person, how to be a responsible person. And I talk about being a father and now being a grandfather, that journey of life. And I try to prepare them for that as much as I pour into basketball while they're here.
Coach, leaders can learn a lot from other leaders. Is there someone in the sport or outside of the sport who makes you think, I like the way they lead, and that should be the next person that we're talking to here on the leadership classroom?
I'm watching all my young leaders. I'm watching the guys on my team who displays leadership characteristics. Because if we don't have the year we want, every player will come in here and say, I have to do a better job leading next year. They embrace leadership. And so I'm looking for young leaders that I can help develop and learn from. And it's always easy to lead when things are going well. It's hard to lead when things aren't going well. And so I've got guys on my team over the years that lead when things aren't going well. And so I'm learning from those young guys every day.
One guy outside the sport that maybe you're looking at, a leader who you go, oh, that's something I'd like to maybe implement, or a trait that I really can relate to.
I mean, I'm looking at ministers that are leading churches that are preaching a good message. I'll hear a good sermon. I'm watching all the presidents over the years, from Trump to Obama to Bush to Clinton. They're leading where it's hard to lead, where half the people are mad and half are happy, yet they lead every day. And so I don't get caught up in politics, but I'm watching how they're trying to lead a country in the hardest job there is in the world, president of the United States.
Coach, you talked about how you know so much about the age group, the 18 to 22-year-olds, because you've been working with them for so many years, even younger as you see them through high school and all of that. Is there a word of wisdom? Because our educators are working with kids that are K through 12, right? So it's anywhere from 5 to 18 years old. Is there a word of wisdom that you would pass along to them that comes deep from your experience over the years that could help them as they lead in the classroom, in the school, a leader of people?
You just have to try your best to make them feel you're invested in them, that you're not just punching the clock 9 to 5, that you're doing the job because you care. And I know years on the job can wear you down. But if you stay true to the mission, which is you're investing in each student, you have to win their trust. So you have to preach that message every day that uh, uh, I'm trying to make a difference in your life as best I can. And if you'll let me in, I can make a difference. And you can't get worn down by those that put up a wall every day. You have to find a way to chip away at that wall. And every teacher that's ever taught knows that they've gotten through to some student during the year. You're not going to get through to all of them, but if you don't try, you won't get through to any of them. So keep fighting the good fight every day and preaching the good message, and try to just chip away at that wall and make a difference in one person's life. And if you make a difference in one person's life, you can make a difference in a lot of people's lives.
You talked earlier in the conversation, Coach, about how NIL has changed things in a lot of ways, and I think about guys like Jay Wright who have left the business as a result of just this changing landscape in college basketball, and just the tenure of head coaches being shorter than it was 5 or 6 years ago. When we look at our own school superintendents, we've seen the tenure shorten as well. All of a sudden, it's down to 3 to 4 years. What does it take to stay in that grind when things get tough?
You know, it's obviously harder when you're younger because you've got a family, you're trying to pay the bills, you're thinking of college funds. When you get to be older like me, you've kind of run the race and now you're in the give back part of your career. So it all depends on your age and where you're at in life. Obviously everybody wants job security in order to go to work every day, and there's less of it than there's ever been. But if you're about the right things, you live your life the right way, you care about the right things, then you can feel good about yourself when you go home every day. And at the end of the day, you have to feel good about yourself if you're going to be the best you can be.
Coach Brian Dutcher, we appreciate the time here on the ACSA Leadership Classroom. Continued success at San Diego State. We'll look forward to catching up again down the road.
Thanks for having me, guys.